So the GT4 and Spyder only comes with one wheel option. So it might be so that you actually are looking to get a second pair. It can be for track use, or because you want your car to look a little bit more special than all the other GT4 and Spyders out there. Or it might be, as in my case, that you're looking for a couple of wheels to have for winter tires so that you can drive your car all year round. No matter what the reason is, you're most likely going to want to get a couple of high quality wheels for your car. Because these cars are meant to be driven hard, and to do so, you want to make sure you get some good quality stuff. That's often, though, is going to bring you to the space where you're going to pay a couple of $1,000 for a set of wheels, which you might not want to do. But there's a much cheaper way to get high quality wheels for your GT4 or a Spyder. Let me tell you all about it in today's episode of Wheels and Toys. So for some of you, it's going to be very obvious what I'm talking about because you see what wheels are actually on this car. But we talked about this before, that Porsches share a lot of components. So this car shares a lot of components with the GT3, but also with the 718 platform in large. One thing that means is that some of these cars also can share wheels and wheel setup. So these wheels here are actually from a 991.1 4S. So the wide body of the 991 generation. You can go with any, let's say 991.2 as well, as long as it's the wide body. So to understand how these wheels fit on the more narrow 718 platform, we need to understand the basics of how wheels are sort of calculated and how they are set up. So I brought this spare tire to talk a little bit about it. So first and foremost, so there's two things we need to understand. There's the width of the wheel, and there's something called the ET, which is a German, like short for some very hard German word. So when you look at this, it's going to be called the offset. So the offset, or ET, is measured in millimeters, which is going to be hard for you guys in the US that only do inches and such. But so the offset is always calculated from the center of the rim. That means 0 is exactly in the middle, then a positive offset is going to be towards the outer part of the wheel. So if it sits like this on the car, the positive goes in this direction and the negative goes in that direction. If you then think of it as a positive, if it's mounted here on the actual brake, a positive spacing here is going to move the wheel inwards. While if it's negative, it's going to move the wheel outwards. And that's quite essential, because otherwise you might think like the higher offset, the further out the wheel is gonna get. But it's the other way around. So once you understood that basics, you can start calculating where the wheel that you're thinking of replacing the OEM with is going to sit. But then it's also the width. So if you have as this is an 11-inch wheel, and you go to a 12-inch wheel, that inch is going to go like half an inch on both sides. So you need to take that into consideration as well. But for easy calculations and thinking of this is an 11-inch wheel that goes standard on the GT4, and this wheel here from the 991 is also an 11-inch wheel. What that means is we need to figure out the difference between the OEM wheel and the 991 wheel to be able to make sure it actually fits. So to do so, we need a little bit of math. But to make sure that I give you the correct number, I'm gonna cheat and use my phone here for a bit. So the GT4 and the Spyder of the 718 generation, the 981 GT4 have the same measurements, but we have 11-inch wide wheels in the back and 8.5 in the front. And it's actually the exact same on the 991 wheels that's now on this. There's a couple of different wheels for the 991, of course, so it might differ depending on the model you are getting. But this one original, or not these original, but the original 718 GT4 wheels have an offset of 50 millimeter in the rear and 61 millimeter in the front. But these 991 wheels then, they have an offset of 52 millimeters in the rear and 51 millimeters in the front. That means we have 2 millimeter sort of less offset here, or more offset actually. So the wheel is pushed 2 millimeters into the car, which is going to be fine. There's no rubbing, there's nothing like that, but they also sit 2 millimeters further in, of course, from the chassis or from the car. While in the front then, we have 10 millimeter in difference, which means the tire is actually pushed outwards. So going from 61 to 51 means that the front wheel is actually pushed 10 millimeter further out and sits almost flush with the body. A lot of people run these cars with spacers. With this setup, at least I believe there's no real need for it. But you can do this trick with a lot of the Porsche cars. For you guys who remember my Taycan, I was actually running my old 991.1 narrow body wheels on that car for the winter tires. So it has the same width in the front, a little bit different in the back, but it worked. It was, I think, 3 or 4 millimeters off an OEM setup, so worked perfectly fine. The same thing goes here. You can run, I would think, having looked at a couple of different options, you can run almost any of the wide body 991 wheels on a GT4, depending on if you do some more stuff to the actual sort of chassis and wheel setup, that might be different. So before you go out and buy a wheel or a set of these, just make sure to do the math and look and start by looking at the offset measurements of your OEM wheels, and then measure towards what you're getting, calculate the width, and make sure that you actually have space for it so that you don't get any rubbing and that you eventually break the bodywork and essentially also the tires and potentially wheels. But the price of these can be had for so much less than any GT4 wheels. They're still high quality, they're made for a car that's also super quick and can take some track work. And they're lightweight and they're seriously high quality. So I got these for 1,500 bucks with winter tires, which is essentially less than one single wheel from the GT4 series. So hopefully you got a little bit more information about how you can get cheaper wheels for your GT4 or Spyder, have it look a little bit different. They're still OEM, they're still high quality. I think these ones looks great, but it's now time to put the summer wheels back on and yeah, take it out for a drive. So a little bit shorter video today. Hopefully you learned a thing or two, and if you like this kind of content, please consider subscribing and give this video a thumbs up. Until I see you next time, take care and goodbye.